Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about kind of little signs that I'm noticing in the weather models and little features that are indicating that, well, fall is nearing. And, this isn't anything that is, I guess, crazy because, well, it's about that time of the year where October or August, almost September, whether or not it's a warm fall or cold fall, it's going to start beginning to look like fall at around this time of the year, especially towards the northern portions of the country, and southern Canada. Obviously, if you live in the deep south, it's still a little bit away from fall, and in that heat, a lot of people may be wanting fall. But yeah, I'll just be talking about signs that I guess fall is coming, and nothing necessarily crazy. Again, it's just something that I guess noticed, and I also will just be going over the forecast, why I'm going over these signs. So let me just play out the GFS model first off, and show you this. So do note that we're kind of in a summer pattern still, and we will be probably for quite a while. And even once these fall, storms or cold waves materialize, that doesn't necessarily mean that fall is, if it comes in September, it's not going to probably stay, the fall-ish patterns. I know for the Midwest here, we've had a pretty chilly August, and I've actually absolutely loved it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, September will be colder, might be even warmer if things get really warm in August, which is usually a bit unusual as September gets chilly pretty quickly. But okay, so first off, notice there's a lot of it's a summer pattern, so you don't really have big storms. You don't have an area of circulation with a defined warm front, cold front. You can, but it is rather rare. And usually, again, that doesn't stop or start occurring till around late August or early September. And notice that we have that currently right now. We just see these little spotty showers, areas of precip, and do note that we have an extreme high pressure potentially building in late next week that could bring a lot of heat into the United States. But I guess that's just something I want to mention. But do note that as I push this into late August, notice what the GFS shows. It shows a decent area of circulation, a pretty strong area of winds, 990, and it actually develops into kind of a very strong low pressure. Even for late August standards, a 984 millibars. We have very strong winds all around this. If this were to occur, it is pretty far out. And again, that's why I'm not titling this video, a storm is coming at this date. Because even if this does occur, this doesn't look absolutely ridiculous. It just looks like I guess, typical late summer, early fall system. But I'm just kind of showing you because this is the most the GFS has shown in terms of a circulation or circulative low in the past probably 2 to 3 months. So that is definitely something I guess I'm kind of excited for. Notice even a little bit of hints of snow and sleet as it gets into Ontario. And obviously behind such a strong system, we do get a pretty large cold blast of air. Notice a 540 line. If you're into reading weather maps, you know that line is where the 32-degree line is. So you could assume that there are probably some temperatures that are getting close to the frost level at this area. Again, this is pretty far to the north, but again, it is already at this point August 31st, so it's not completely unheard of. And do note that once that occurs, we see really a strong high pressure move in, right? And we see these winds pumping. Look at all those millibars right there. Low pressure from the north and west, so you could assume that the winds are flowing from the south and west, and that means very warm air. And indeed, if you look at the anomalies, we have a patch of very, very warm air out ahead of that. What does that mean? Well, this system that's arriving through British Columbia has a lot of energy to work with. And notice, pretty nasty showers across the southern Canadian prairies. Quite a bit of snow at this point. I remember just a few weeks ago when we just saw a few little blue dots. At this point, across the mountains of the Rockies, which again are pretty tall, so this isn't really unusual to see snow at those elevations at this time of the year, when this is showing us for September 3rd. Notice that we are seeing decent snows there. And look, so we see just this moisture kind of streaming up to the north. Again, something you would see more with typical fall big systems and big storms. And you can see that this is, potentially, if this were to occur the way it's showing, which again is a bit insane to predict a storm this far out, and that's not the point of this video. Just showing you that the models are increasingly starting to show these bigger, more, robust systems. And do note, we also have more activity in the tropics. Now, again, obviously, this far out, this thing, there's probably a 1% chance that this thing will actually form the way the GFS is showing. But the models, as of recently, have been showing an increase in the tropical activity, and that may not seem like a sign of fall, but usually it is, because hurricane season typically peaks across the Atlantic Ocean in late August, early September, and there have been years where the activity actually peaks more closer to October, and that certainly is indicator of fall. I remember so many times throughout my childhood, especially the recent years, going back to school and whatnot, and there's just hurricane on the news. It's much more of a late summer, fall thing rather than a early summer, late spring thing. I mean, that's actually usually pretty rare to see strong systems at that time. So yeah, hurricane season has been pretty quiet thus far, but the models, the GFS has been hinting at an uptick, and so has NOAA. They have warned, or sorry, the National Hurricane Center, that it's going to become more favorable for development. And do note that, again, the GFS has been showing these big systems now for a few model runs, so this isn't just one model I'm showing you. And look, there again, around that same time frame, it's showing some sort of a storm. Again, you can see how much it shifts around just from a 6-hour, I guess, difference in modeling. I want to show you more of the Atlantic Ocean. There we go, so we can have a good look at this. So this is, again, you can see the US, there's Europe, there's Africa, South America, Central America. And do note that we're going to have these systems riding off the coast of Africa, and you can see some of them will be strengthening into these tropical storms or depressions or systems. An increasing amount of them will be doing that, and that is definitely, again, another sign that, well, fall is on its way. Do note that, again, a lot of these don't really survive. They're not in favorable conditions, and that they get ripped apart, but a few of them do, and all it takes is a few. And again, this is far out. I don't believe the European is as aggressive, but it also doesn't go as far out. So again, that is something to keep in mind. Do note, though, it shows a lot of activity, so all it takes is just one little system to start taking off. And notice the last slide right there has weak systems. Obviously, these aren't even probably tropical depressions, or maybe tropical depressions, but there's 4 of them, and you wouldn't be able to find that throughout much of the summer yet, or even the next 10 days. But once you start getting towards that late August, early September, concerningly, we get a lot of these little systems starting to take off. So that is definitely something to note for, or I guess point at. And by the way, the European does start sending, just like the GFS, a lot of these bigger systems through more of southern and central Canada. So that is also something that is an indicator of fall. So I want to show you some of these temperature anomalies, especially after those big storms. That's the wrong graphic. I just wanted to focus on. This mouse isn't working, per usual. Let's take a look at this, and let's just zoom this forward. So again, the southern United States, you are dealing with the stalled out cold front right now, so you will be chillier this upcoming weekend, or sorry, this upcoming week. It won't be as warm. The eastern northeast United States, kind of the northern United States, will also be decently around average. The cold air is kind of moving up, the warmth is moving in. Area that will be warmer is the west and northwest, and especially southwestern Canada. Do note that we could have some pretty intense anomalies, but do note that after each storm, we could see a pretty nice cool down of cold air, and that's just another sign of fall. Usually these big systems, they bring a lot of heat out ahead of it, right? Early, again, this is early September, and then look at this one. This one is also really impressive, that cool blast of air. And again, this has been indicated by the models for a few model runs now. Let's go back to the noon model run of the GFS. Again, staying cooler across the south, warmer across the north and west and northwest. Look at that one that the GFS model showed today, moving in early September. That's a pretty powerful, cool blast of air. Obviously, where it goes down, it must go up. You can see on the other hand, we're dealing with very warm temperatures across southern British Columbia and whatnot. So we're not all good, but definitely signs of change in the air. So let's go back to the 60. This is the morning one. Again, the same trends, cooler across the south. Again, the central and northeastern United States, not too bad. Maine could be pretty warm, New England this week, but predominantly the worst of the warmth is across the northwest and southern Canada. And do note that towards the end of this week and into next week, that changes, and we see the heat being a bit more widespread. But again, you could see some pretty large cool air masses. Not necessarily as large of a cooldown as the recent model runs are showing, but if you're to take a look at the MSLP and precip, you see the more activity in terms of larger storms. Again, up until now, we've had these smaller systems, nothing too incredible, and towards the end, you can see they start firing up these bigger, more impressive storms again with a more tropical activity as well. And that is kind of what I wanted to show you. Just again, an indication that fall is indeed coming through. And, you know, it's, again, nothing too incredible. It's just always kind of cool to see the first big storms of the year spinning up. And you can see that some model runs are from like yesterday at midnight aren't as conducive for these, you know, these big storms. But like that last image, let's go back to exactly 24 hours ago, and we'll see again. You can see just these little weak disturbances. It doesn't take much to fire up some convection during the summer, but later on it takes a bit more, and that's when we start seeing those bigger storms. You can see one right there spinning into Canada, a little bit of snow with it, and again, as I mentioned, the tropics, especially with this model run, we're just absolutely firing off. So that's definitely something interesting to note. But yes, predominantly the most recent model runs have been showing these big systems moving through. At least, I guess, past this upcoming week, we start seeing that, look, one right there with a little bit of snow, quite a bit of cool air behind it. There's another one that starts forming with, again, more tropical activity and, you know, snow at this point in areas like the Grand Tetons in Wyoming. That's just going to start becoming the norm as we move through, and, you know, eventually that will become more low elevations, and potentially, you know, out into the plains. And not long, probably a month or two before we see our first snowstorm across, I guess, lower lying areas. Canadian model doesn't go out as far as the GFS. Those does go out as far as the European. And notice it does show an increase and uptick in activity. Not necessarily the big storms we're kind of talking about, but that is definitely something that the Canadian may start showing once we reach past the 240-hour timeline, as that's when kind of the GFS starts hinting at that. Yeah, overall though, just nothing too incredible in terms of big storms. I just wanted to show you that, well, changes in the air. And again, as I mentioned in my many previous videos, I still am pretty confident in the fact that I believe it will be a warmer fall. So, you know, a cold, really cold fall, I'm not really seeing that. I could show you the ensembles. This is a long range ensemble. Many models combined, and this goes out to, I think, 800 hours, which is like 25 days or some sort. This one isn't fully processed, so let's go back to the day prior. They only come out once per day, I think. Yeah, they only come out once per day at midnight, so, but it's still a very good tool, as, you know, there's very few models that go out that far, and it's an ensemble, so it's relatively reliable. And notice what the trend is, that there's a bit of cool air sprinkled in. If there is, it is across kind of the northeast of Great Lakes, where those storm fronts would kind of bring that cooler air, but really the west and the northwest staying pretty darn warm. And honestly, I have to agree with the ensemble here. I don't really see any signs of prolonged cool for the United States other than these shots. And you can see towards the end of September, they may start showing some more cool air mixing in, which is actually pretty interesting how it shows that very far out. And because usually when it goes out very far, these ensembles, they either choose warm or cool, and they just kind of stick with that. So it's not really often you get these features like that. So again, I do think there will be periodic systems that bring in quite a bit of cool air, and you know, you could argue that these storms will be bigger and stronger because of the fact that there is so much warm air around to be kind of fed in, and warm air holds more moisture. But yeah, I mean, look at that. We have extreme heat across the northeast relatively for September, and then just, you know, very chilly conditions across the west here, with frost across a good portion of Wyoming at that point, 90s, almost hundreds elsewhere. You're going to start seeing these type of setups as we go into fall. All right, that's basically it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.